Welcome back to Beneath the Surface, the Dark Side of Crime. In today's episode, we delve into a case that shocked the UK. A young woman's bright future ripped away in a violent and senseless crime. Join us as we uncover the chilling story of Sally Ann Bowman, a young woman with a promising life ahead, who tragically became the victim of a brutal attack that would leave her family and the community shattered. This is a story of heartbreak, investigation, and, eventually, justice. Stay tuned as we walk you through every detail of this haunting case, and don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon to stay updated with more true crime stories. Chapter 1. A bright star, Sally Ann Bowman's story began in Croydon, South London, on September 11, 1987, when she was born to Linda and Paul Bowman. Sally Ann was the youngest of 3 children and quickly became the heart of the Bowman family. From a young age, she was known for her infectious energy, radiant smile, and the love she spread wherever she went. Sally Ann's family knew early on that their daughter had a special spirit, a zest for life that was unmatched. Linda and Paul supported Sally Ann's dreams and ambitions, always encouraging her to follow her passions. They recognized her love for the arts and were incredibly proud when Sally Ann was accepted into the prestigious Brit School for Performing Arts. This was a significant milestone, as the Brit School had produced some of the most renowned artists of our time, including Adele and Tom Holland. However, Sally Ann's talents were not limited to performing. She had a natural beauty and grace which led her to pursue a career in modeling. By the age of 18, Sally Ann was already making waves in the industry. However, despite the success she had already achieved, Sally Ann remained grounded. Her close relationships with her family and friends were always her top priority. Her mother, Linda, often remarked how Sally Ann had a way of making everyone feel loved. She was the kind of person who would light up a room just by walking into it. Her infectious laugh, her ability to make others feel comfortable, and her generous nature made her beloved by all who knew her. Chapter 2. A Night Out in Croydon. September 24, 2005, was a typical Saturday night in Croydon, but for Sally Ann, it would become a night of tragic consequence. That day, she had spent time at her mother's house, a quiet retreat from the hustle of her busy life. She and her sister Nicole made plans to go out and celebrate with friends. The birthday celebration of one of Nicole's closest friends had been planned for weeks, and Sally Ann was eager to join in. As she prepared for the evening, Sally Ann was excited. She had always loved getting dressed up and spending time with her friends, but this night felt different. Perhaps it was because she had recently ended her relationship with her ex-boyfriend, Lewis, and the emotions from the breakup were still raw. At the bar, Sally Ann's infectious energy and bright smile were on full display. Her friends and family marveled at how she could command the attention of any room she walked into. The CCTV footage from that night shows Sally Ann laughing, dancing, and enjoying herself. The scene could have been a happy, carefree memory, one that would have been told for years to come, but instead it became the last image of Sally Ann's life. The night began to wind down, and Sally Ann and Nicole left the bar to head to the town center. They shared a moment of sisterly affection as they planned to meet up again soon. Sally Ann then made a fateful decision. Her ex-boyfriend Lewis called, and despite the end of their relationship, Sally Ann agreed to meet him for closure. Chapter 3. The Disappearance. Sally Ann had only a few blocks to walk from her sister to meet Lewis, but what happened during that short period would change everything. As she walked alone to meet him, she was emotionally unsettled by the argument they had before. Her mind raced with thoughts of their time together and the pain of their recent breakup. But what was meant to be a peaceful reunion quickly turned into a heated argument that continued for nearly 2 hours. At around 4:15 a.m., Sally Ann stepped out of Louis's car, frustrated and upset. She was alone in the dark, a few steps away from her rented room at Blenheim Crescent, but the safety of home seemed distant. She walked away from Louis, and that would be the last time anyone saw her alive. What followed was silence. The tranquility of the early morning hours was broken only by a scream, a desperate cry that was heard by a nearby neighbor. This was the last sound Sally Ann would make before her life was brutally taken. The witness, startled by the noise, looked out their window but saw nothing out of the ordinary. It was quiet again, as if the life had been sucked from the street. By the time the neighbor returned to their window, they saw a man walking down the street, seemingly without haste. No one knew what had happened, but the uneasy feeling lingered. Chapter 4. The Discovery. The discovery of Sally Ann's body sent shockwaves through the community. A neighbor, walking early in the morning, noticed what they thought were the legs of a mannequin sticking out from behind a builder's skip. However, as they approached, the chilling reality set in. It was no mannequin, but Sally Ann's lifeless body, discarded and violated. The neighbor immediately called the police, and the authorities arrived on the scene to find the body of a young woman, partially clothed and clearly the victim of a violent attack. Her life had been violently taken, her body left discarded in the street where she had hoped to be safe. As the police cordoned off the area and began their investigation, they realized the gravity of what had happened. A young woman with so much promise had been taken, and the search for her killer began immediately. Sally Ann's family had no idea that their worst nightmare was about to unfold. Chapter 5. The investigation begins. The police investigation into Sally Ann's murder quickly became one of the largest and most high-profile cases in London at the time. The authorities began by focusing on those closest to her, including her ex-boyfriend Louis Sproston. Louis had been one of the last people to see her alive, and their heated argument made him a prime suspect. However, DNA evidence would soon prove that the truth was far darker than anyone could have imagined. At the same time, Sally Ann's family was struggling to come to terms with the reality of what had happened. When Linda Bowman opened the door to 3 officers on the morning of September 25th, she assumed it was Sally Ann, locked out after a night out. But instead, the officers delivered the heartbreaking news. Her daughter had been found dead. The pain of the moment was unbearable. Linda screamed, her world crumbling. It wasn't supposed to be this way. Her daughter was supposed to have a bright future ahead, but instead, she was gone. Sally Ann's family was thrust into the darkest chapter of their lives, filled with grief, disbelief, and questions that had no answers. Chapter 6. The Cold Case Connection. As investigators began gathering evidence from the scene, they made a chilling discovery. DNA found on Sally Ann's body didn't match Louis Sproston's, but rather it matched the DNA profile from an unsolved sexual assault case from 4 years earlier. This connection led the police to Mark Dixie, a man with a violent history and a disturbing pattern of criminal behavior. Dixie had been involved in multiple assaults over the years, including a disturbing incident in 2001, where he exposed himself to a woman in a public phone box. His DNA had been collected at the time, but he had managed to evade the authorities until now. The DNA evidence that connected him to Sally Ann's murder was the key that unlocked the case. Chapter 7. The Manhunt and Arrest. Once Mark Dixie's name surfaced, the police launched a manhunt. Dixie, a man with a history of violent crime, was now the prime suspect in the murder of Sally Ann. Police feared that he would strike again if not caught soon. The hunt for him was intense and urgent. Dixie's arrest came after a brief altercation in a pub, where he was involved in a fight with another man. This altercation, caught on CCTV, would be the beginning of the end for Dixie. He was arrested, and during questioning, he maintained that he had no knowledge of Sally Ann's death. But the DNA evidence said otherwise. Chapter 8. The Trial. Mark Dixie's trial was a painful ordeal for Sally Ann's family. They sat in the courtroom, listening to the details of their daughter's brutal murder being laid bare. Dixie's defense was chillingly cold. He admitted to sexually assaulting Sally Ann, but he denied killing her. He claimed that he had found her unconscious and took advantage of the situation, but he maintained that the true killer was still at large. Despite the lack of remorse from Dixie, the evidence against him was overwhelming. The jury deliberated and found him guilty of murder. The family's long wait for justice had finally come to an end. Mark Dixie was sentenced to life in prison, with a minimum term of 34 years. For Sally Ann's family, it was a bitter victory. The pain of losing her would never fade, but at least the man who took her life was now behind bars. Chapter 9. The Aftermath and Advocacy for Change. After the trial and the conviction of Mark Dixie, the Bowman family faced a new challenge, living without Sally Ann, and finding a way to heal from the devastation that had shattered their lives. The grief was profound, unrelenting, and something they would carry with them every day. But amidst the pain, Sally Ann's family found strength not only in each other but in the desire to ensure that her tragic death would lead to positive change. They were determined that Sally Ann's legacy would go beyond the courtroom and the conviction of a killer. It would spark a nationwide conversation about justice, DNA technology, and the need for systemic reform. Linda Bowman, Sally Ann's mother, was the first to step forward as a powerful advocate for change. In the months following Sally Ann's murder, she found herself not just mourning the loss of her daughter, but fighting to prevent other families from experiencing similar devastation. While the legal process had played out and the murderer was convicted, Linda realized that the gaps in the criminal justice system still left so many unanswered questions and so many other potential victims. Linda Bowman's advocacy. Linda's advocacy was deeply personal. She knew that if a national DNA database had been in place before, it might have led to the quicker identification of Mark Dixie. The DNA evidence collected from Sally Ann's body had been crucial in linking Dixie to the crime, but it had also taken too long for the system to catch up with the technology. If a national DNA registry had been mandatory, the police could have matched Dixie's DNA to past crimes sooner, potentially preventing other violent acts. Linda became an outspoken advocate for the creation of a comprehensive national DNA database, which would be used to identify violent offenders and prevent crimes before they escalated to the levels seen with Dixie. The failure to catch him earlier was a deep source of frustration for Linda, and she channeled this frustration into her public efforts. Her calls for a more robust system for collecting and using DNA samples were aimed at protecting other young women from becoming victims of similar crimes. She spoke at public events, appeared on TV programs, and lobbied lawmakers, pushing for legislation that would require DNA samples from all individuals arrested for serious crimes. Through her tireless campaigning, Linda gained the support of many individuals and organizations who understood the importance of such a registry. It wasn't just about her own loss, but about protecting future generations and ensuring that the justice system kept pace with technological advancements. The emotional toll on Sally Ann's family. Despite their efforts to turn their grief into action, the emotional toll on Sally Ann's family remained significant. Linda Bowman often described the feeling of waking up in the morning, momentarily forgetting that her daughter was gone, only for the crushing reality to set in as the day unfolded. The constant reminders, the empty chair at the dinner table, the absence of Sally Ann's voice were impossible to ignore. For Sally Ann's sister, Michelle, the loss was equally devastating. They had been incredibly close growing up, and Sally Ann had always been there to support her through the ups and downs of life. In the wake of her death, Michelle found herself in a constant state of disbelief, as if she were waiting for Sally Ann to walk through the door any moment. The bond they shared was irreplaceable, and the void left by her sister's absence was a constant source of heartache. Michelle recalled the moment when she was asked to identify Sally Ann's body. She described it as a surreal experience, one that haunts her to this day. "For a split second, I thought it wasn't her," she said. "But then I saw her little button nose, her freckles, and that was it. I knew it was her." But how could it be? The emotional scars left by the murder would take years to process. For Michelle, the grief became something she carried with her, hidden beneath the surface, even as she pushed forward with the family's efforts to ensure justice was done. The impact on the community. Sally Ann's murder also had a profound effect on the local community of Croydon. While it was a tragic loss for Sally Ann's family, it was also a tragic loss for a community that had watched her grow up. Her death rocked the small neighborhood, leaving a sense of vulnerability and fear among its residents. In the wake of the murder, many people in Croydon became more aware of the dangers that lurked in their own backyard. The case served as a wake-up call, reminding everyone that no one is truly safe, even in seemingly quiet and suburban neighborhoods. While Sally Ann's death was a highly publicized case, it also had a much quieter impact on those who lived nearby, residents who may have been unaware of the risk that existed in their own community. The police, too, were affected by the case. For many investigators, the brutal nature of the crime left a lasting impression. DC1, Chris Lepere, who was part of the investigation team, later commented on how the case impacted him personally. He had encountered many cases during his career, but Sally Ann's murder was different. "It was one of the most chilling and tragic cases I've ever worked on," he said. Her family's strength in the face of such devastating loss was both humbling and inspiring. In addition to the emotional impact, the case brought to light the importance of forensic technology in modern-day investigations. The swift resolution of Sally Ann's case was largely due to DNA evidence, an essential tool that had not always been used to its full potential. The case sparked discussions about how forensic evidence could be better utilized to prevent future crimes and catch offenders before they escalated. The long road to justice reform. While Linda Bowman's public advocacy was essential, it wasn't without its struggles. As she fought for a national DNA database, she encountered significant resistance from politicians who were concerned about the implications for civil liberties. The idea of a universal database, where every person arrested for a serious crime would have their DNA collected, was seen by some as an invasion of privacy. However, Linda's persistence eventually paid off. Through collaboration with victim advocacy groups and public support, her calls for a national DNA database gained traction. While the process was slow and the reforms were not as comprehensive as she had hoped, Linda continued to press on, speaking out for the victims who had no voice. Her activism served as a rallying point for other families affected by violent crime, and the issue of DNA collection became one of the key factors in the ongoing debate about criminal justice reform. Though her advocacy work could never bring Sally Ann back, it ensured that her daughter's legacy would live on in the push for systemic change. A mother's message. Linda Bowman's advocacy was also fueled by a simple yet powerful message. No other mother should ever have to experience the pain she endured. Through her tireless work, Linda has made it her mission to ensure that the law evolves, that technology is used to protect the vulnerable, and that justice for victims is always the priority. She has often said, "If my fight for justice means that one less family has to suffer, then Sally Ann's death will have meant something." Linda's message has resonated with countless people across the UK, and her efforts have inspired other families to continue the fight for justice. Her work, though born from unimaginable grief, has sparked a movement for change, one that continues to push for greater accountability, better use of forensic evidence, and, ultimately, a safer society for everyone. A lasting legacy. Sally Ann Bowman's tragic death left an indelible mark not only on her family but on the community of Croydon and the nation as a whole. A bright and promising young woman, full of life and ambition, was taken far too soon. Her murder, a senseless act of violence, shocked those who knew her and cast a long, dark shadow over her family's once happy life. While Sally Ann's family was able to find some measure of peace knowing that the man who murdered her was held accountable, the emotional scars of her loss will never fully heal. The pain of her absence is something no sentence can undo. For Linda Bowman, Sally Ann's mother, the road to recovery has been long and heartbreaking. But through it all, she has found strength in honoring her daughter's memory. Linda's advocacy work has been one of the most profound ways she's channeled her grief. She has dedicated her life to ensuring that no other family has to endure the same pain. She has spoken out for the creation of a comprehensive national DNA database, one that could help identify violent offenders before they escalate to such extreme violence. Her work and her fight for change, driven by the loss of her daughter, have led to increased awareness of the gaps in the criminal justice system and the need for proactive measures to catch dangerous offenders before they commit irreversible acts. Linda has become a beacon of hope for others who have faced similar tragedies, encouraging them to continue the fight for justice. Her tireless campaigning has led to changes in legislation, even if the personal toll has been immeasurable. But Sally Ann's story has also been a wake-up call for the public. It reminded us all that no matter how safe we think our communities are, violence can strike at any moment. It is also a stark reminder of how critical it is to use every available tool, like DNA evidence, to solve crimes. The case highlighted the value of forensic science and how breakthroughs in this field can make the difference between a long unsolved case and the conviction of a killer. Her legacy lives on through her family, friends, and those who continue to advocate for justice in her name. Sally Ann's bright spirit, her love for the arts, and her radiant personality will never be forgotten. Through the pain and suffering, her story has led to changes that could potentially prevent further tragedy. While she is gone, her influence persists. As the investigation came to a close, the legacy of Sally Ann Bowman was solidified as a reminder of the strength of a family's love and the unyielding power of justice. Her story is far from over. It continues to inspire change, urging us to push for a future where DNA technology, swift justice, and proactive policies prevent violence and protect those who cannot protect themselves. As we wrap up today's episode, Sally Ann Bowman's story is a poignant reminder of how quickly everything can change. The tragedy of her death has forever altered the lives of her family and community, but it also sparked a crucial conversation about justice, the role of forensic science, and the importance of holding criminals accountable. Linda Bowman's advocacy, born from the darkest depths of grief, is an inspiring testament to the resilience of the human spirit. In a world where justice can sometimes seem elusive, Linda's determination reminds us that, even in the face of unimaginable loss, there is power in fighting for what's right. If Sally Ann's story has affected you as deeply as it has us, we encourage you to take a moment to reflect. What can we all do to contribute to a safer world? How can we help ensure that the next tragic crime is prevented before it even happens? If you've been touched by this story or believe in the importance of advocating for change, we invite you to engage with us in the comments below. Share your thoughts, your support, or your own experiences with us. We'd love to hear your opinions on the role of DNA evidence in the criminal justice system and how we can all contribute to creating a safer, more just society. As always, don't forget to like, subscribe, and click the notification bell so you never miss an episode of Beneath the Surface, the dark side of crime. Together, we can uncover the truth and continue to fight for justice in the memory of those we've lost. Thank you for joining us today. Until next time, stay safe, stay vigilant, and always remember, there's always more beneath the surface.